Germany is in a bit of a pickle. Well, not Germany specifically, but the Luftwaffe, the German Air Force. It is looking to update some of its key equipment, and the F-35, the Lockheed Martin F-35, was part of that discussion for some time, until it was simply brushed aside. What is going on? Why is Germany looking to update some of its equipment, and why is the F-35 no longer part of that discussion? I will try to answer that question in this video. So as a quick reminder of what is going on, Germany is currently on the hunt for a replacement for the aging Panavia Tornado fleet. I already talked about Germany's reasons for replacing Tornado and some of the recent news surrounding this issue in these videos right here. So if you're new to this, make sure you watch these videos as well so you get a fuller picture. But as a quick reminder here, it of course serves to remember that Germany is trying to find a replacement for Tornado IDS and Tornado ECR. And currently, the discussions revolve around the Eurofighter and the FA-18 Super Hornet and the E-18 Growler. At the date of this recording, they have not yet confirmed that they are going to buy American. Never mind what you've read on the internet, never mind what you've seen on YouTube. The defense ministry and the German parliament has not yet confirmed the order, nor has the necessary budget been passed. The only budget that has been cleared by parliament a couple of months ago was on updating part of Germany's Eurofighter fleet, not for buying Super Hornets or Growlers. The budget committee of the German parliament passed a 5.4 billion euro package for the purchase of 38 machines. With this, the first generation of Eurofighters is to be replaced. There is no direct link to their plans for replacing the aging Tornado platform. Germany has still no concrete solution on how they're going to be substitute Tornado. And to be honest, if they wanted to have a domestic solution, they should have started working on this like 20 years ago. At minimum. But they didn't, so we are in this very joyous situation. At the very least, we do know that Eurofighter and also the Boeing aircraft are being considered at the moment. That begs, of course, the question, why not the F-35? And there's a lot of things that speak for the F-45. And in order to illustrate those, let me put on my best salesman impression. The F-35 can fulfill every single mission Germany would want it to, and more. All mission parameters and more? Check. The F-35 is nuclear strike capable and recently got certified for the B-61. F-35 NATO nuclear sharing policy. Check. The F-35 is also the most modern, state-of-the-art system out there. F-35, modern and state-of-the-art system. Check. It's the most future-proof system, and it would also buy y'all some time for that F-Cast thing y'all be trying to put together. F-35, future-proof? Check. What do you say? Sounds pretty good now. Sounds good on paper, ja, sehr gut. Check. Fantastic. Pleasure doing business with you. Here's the invoice. Dankeschön. Okay, so that was a bit of fun to illustrate some selling points, but actually, to be honest, I don't think that the price tag of the F-35 is that big of an issue, or should be that big of an issue, all things considered, but I will go into that later on in the video. For now, it serves to remember that the F-35 was actually being considered as an option for some time. For example, in 2017, Germany shortlisted the F-35 and approached the Americans to ask for relevant information on the platform in order to assist them making a decision on it. The German Air Force this month sent the US military a written request for classified data on the Lockheed Martin Corporation F-35 fighter jet as it gears up to replace its current fleet of fighter jets from 2025 to 2035. In the same year, Luftwaffeninspekteur Generalleutnant Karl Müllner indicated that the F-35 is considered as the best option for the Luftwaffe. The German military needs a fifth-generation replacement for its Tornado fighter jets, the Chief of Staff of the Air Force said on Wednesday. Lieutenant General Karl Müllner's comments are his clearest public statements to date on the Tornado replacement program. They indicate a preference for the Lockheed Martin Corporation's F-35 fighter jet, the only Western aircraft that meets those requirements. Müllner, who had also championed the use of weaponized drones, had been quite an experienced Luftwaffeninspekteur, holding the job since 2012. His frequent clashes with then Defense Minister Ursula von der Leyen and his rather public support for the F-35 is by many seen as the reason for what happened next. In the debate over deficiencies with Bundeswehr equipment, the Defense Minister Ursula von der Leyen has initiated a changing of the guard. Next to the replacement of the current Undersecretary of Defense, the current Inspector General of the Bundeswehr and the long-standing Inspector of the Luftwaffe, Generalleutnant Karl Müllner, had to resign. It has been suggested within the Defense Ministry that by indicating his preference for the US jet, Müllner has publicly opposed the minister on a key defense acquisition matter. In the official press release of the ministry, the reasons for the personnel changes were not further justified. And with that, the F-35 was off the table. Well, not exactly. It actually did take until like 2019 for an official statement to be made. But you know, if somebody appears to get fired over this issue, then that usually signals to everyone in the room, as well as to everyone outside the room, that, hey, this issue is really not being discussed anymore. And now for a quick intermission. If you enjoy my videos, whether that is Inside the Cockpit or my World War II Luftwaffe primary document series or this one, consider doing the whole liking, subscribing, hitting the notification bell icon thingy here on YouTube. I know, super selfish of me to ask you to do that, but actually it's win-win. You get regular free content that you enjoy and I get to do this. So let's win-win together. And also I keep having people asking me where they can get these aircraft models that they see in the background of my videos. I've actually recently partnered with a company called Air Models. So if you want to spice up your office space, your living room, your kitchen, your bathroom, maybe even your bedroom with some sweet Air Models, well, check out Air Models with the link down below. That's an affiliate link, so any purchase you make is not just going to make your space look a lot more air-spacey. That was a horrible joke, but it's also going to support the channel. So if you do that, thank you very much. And now back to the video. Whatever might have been the cause for Müllner's dismissal, this debate is also one about how Germany talks or doesn't talk about military procurement. So I want to briefly talk about 4 issues that I believe have an influence on this debate and the possibility of getting the F-35, which, as I said, is not being considered at the moment. Now I'm going to be very clear here. A lot of this is somewhat unclear. This is a very bureaucratic process. This is one that is very complex. So what I'm going to lay out here is a more generalized meta scope of things, and then maybe in a future video I can drill down more specifically into individual issues if you guys would like to see that. In Germany, any sort of major debate on military matters is sure to pickle somebody's cabbage. Weaponized drones, G36 rifle, nuclear sharing policy, interventions abroad, tornado replacement. What I find remarkable, however, is that in recent history, the industry is getting a lot more vocal. And they're doing this in public, which really is not a given for Germany. Take Airbus. Airbus is applying a lot of pressure to keep Eurofighter orders rolling in. And Airbus argues that it can, and already has to a degree, modified Eurofighter into a platform that can also substitute Tornado IDS. At the same time, they of course also want to replace Tornado ECR, and for that they want to modify Eurofighter into an electronic warfare platform. Similar to how the Growler is sort of the electronic warfare cousin of the Super Hornet, right? Now that hasn't happened yet, and it's going to look very expensive, but Airbus naturally wants to do it. And actually you might remember this from the other videos, I already spoke about that there. So I think in the future we will definitely be seeing even more vocal industry, and one that is going to apply a lot of pressure via lobbying, but also via the labor unions. And any sort of return to a discussion on the F-35 is going to attract a very vigorous response, because Airbus, of course, wants to keep jobs in Europe, well, specifically in Germany, and the Eurofighter platform is going to allow that. Any talk about the F-35 is immediately going to attract a lot of comments about its price tag. But I actually don't think that the price tag of the F-35 is that much big of an issue in this case, although the perception of it might be very different. As you know, the figures that you see advertised on the internet of the unit prices, so the price you pay for a single aircraft are usually only ballpark figures. And the way they calculate it sometimes is just they take a complete order package and then they just divide it by the number of planes orders and you get a figure. But this figure includes not just a plane, but a lot of other things. For example, spare parts, early maintenance on the machines, and of course also training. And on top of that, the prices that you pay might vary considerably between the orders because of the date when the order was made, the upgrades that you have asked for in the machine, and of course also the batch size of your order. So two different orders by two different countries with a relatively similar batch size might actually be broken down into two completely different prices per plane, simply because these deals are completely different. Let's put some figures out there, right? The F-35A, which was the plane that the Luftwaffe was looking at, has reportedly fallen to below 80 million USD per plane. It's very unlikely that Germany is going to get that price. For example, the Danish deal on the F-35 equals out at 116 million USD. Norway at 160 million USD and Belgium at a whopping 191 million USD. Now, I'm going to assume that if Germany puts in a significant batch order, that it's probably going to get a price that is, once you break it down, roughly equivalent to the Danish figure. But again, that's just speculation. Then let's look at the Eurofighter. The Eurofighter, we actually have that recent order by the German Parliament, right? And this is an 8.4 billion euro package for 38 Eurofighters. And if you break that down per plane, we're sitting at, I believe it was 142 million euros, which quick math translates into like what, 165 million USD per plane. Again, that's not just the price per plane, that also includes all the extra costs that I talked about earlier. But if we shave off, let's say 15 to 30 million, whether you want to make that euros or USD, depends on you. But Eurofighter is also expensive. Of course, beyond that, lifetime costs matters as well, and the F-35 is more expensive there. Plus, as it is a completely new machine that Germany would have to get used to. So it is expensive both to purchase and to run. However, I think really the money is a superficial reason. It's something that gets quick public traction. Like with the F-35, the price has already become sort of a meme, really. And beyond that, you know, it's just good for a couple of nice headlines in the media. But if we, for example, assume that the Germans are going to go with a pure Eurofighter approach and substitute Tornado IDS with Eurofighter and Tornado ECR, then Tornado or Eurofighter ECR has to be developed first, and that's going to be really expensive as well. And although I can't really tell you how much that is going to cost because I don't know, I feel like ordering a significant number of F-35s versus ordering a custom purpose-built Eurofighter ECR that maybe only Germany wants and maybe only Germany orders in the end. I mean, which one is going to be more expensive? I really don't know at this point, but I have a feeling that it might actually be Eurofighter. So I don't think the price matters that much beyond the perception of the price. But I think there's a genuine hesitance perhaps in Germany about buying American at this point, and that might also have an influence on the Super Hornet and the Growler deal. Well, there is no deal yet, but on the plans of perhaps potentially substituting Tornado IDS and Tornado ECR with the Super Hornet and the Growler. Yeah, the actions of America since the invasion of Iraq, the continuous interventions abroad, and then specifically also the legacy of the Donald Trump administration on transatlantic relations have created in Germany more and more hesitance about doing anything with the Americans, and yeah, anti-American feeling in Germany is probably on the rise. And that, in fact, might have an influence on the decision whether you can put in an order for the Super Hornets and the Growlers, never mind the F-35, because a lot of political bargaining has to take place. Since buying anything American at this point might be perceived by some people in society and also by some people in politics as buying into or even sort of sponsoring an American war machine. So any sort of deal involving the Americans and their equipment is probably going to result in a lot more discussion than we are currently seeing just now. Of course, Germany does not just need to replace Tornado, it also needs to have a platform that is nuclear strike capable because of NATO's nuclear sharing policy, which is a policy that, based on these quick polls that I ran on YouTube and Twitter, not that many people seem to be familiar with. By the way, if you took part in that poll, thank you very much. Thank you very much for answering honestly. It was a big help. So, in a nutshell, NATO's nuclear sharing policy is a policy of nuclear deterrence, where member states, NATO member states that do not have domestic nuclear weapons are included in the delivery of American nuclear weapons should this be required. Now, whether you agree with this policy or not, that is really up to you, but Germany is in it. And NATO's nuclear sharing policy, it really isn't like it is the most dominating political or social discussion at the moment. It really isn't. But nukes are known to incite a lot of emotion. And Germany on the whole is against nuclear stuff, whether we're talking about nuclear energy or, of course, weapons. The F-35 is certified for the B-61. Yeah, it checks that box. Eurofighter isn't. And if Germany wants to have it certified for the B-61, it is relatively reliant. It is not just relatively reliant, it is completely reliant on the Americans of saying yes. Now, if Germany turns around to the Americans and says, we are not going to take the F-35, we're not going to take Super Hornet, not going to take the Growler, we're going to go with a pure Eurofighter lineup, they're putting the ball in America's playfield. And America then has to decide, okay, we want Germany in NATO's nuclear sharing policy, so we are going to allow this. That's going to take a couple of years, and it's reliant on American timetables, but it might happen. But at the same time, the Americans might say, no, this is not going to happen. And if Germany then sticks to its guns and says, no, we are going to stay with Eurofighter, whether you certify it for the B-61 or not, then Germany is de facto out of NATO's nuclear sharing policy because they don't have a platform able to deliver the B-61, which is actually something that they might prefer. Of course, if the Americans say yes, that's going to set up another beehive, because in order to get the Eurofighter certified for the B-61, the way I understand it is there's going to be a lot of information and also intelligence sharing on the platform in order to make that integration possible, which is something that not everybody might want to happen, starting with Airbus and then also going over to all the other countries that are currently using the Eurofighter. So yeah, that's going to make things quite tricky once again. Why didn't we just start like 20 years ago trying to find a replacement, really? Why didn't we just do that? When it comes to the Bundeswehr, Germany doesn't know what it wants. It's in a very inconvenient spot of where it could and perhaps should be doing more, but it doesn't really want to. There's a strong reluctance in both society and politics in order to do anything concrete. And I'm going to point to the interview that I did with Dr. Ulrike Franke. She breaks this down really well. Germany needs to spend money to update its force, and it has quite a few projects running. There's FCAS, or SCAF as the French say it, and then there's MGCS. That's the thing I can never say really fast. MGCS, there we go. Actually managed to do it relatively quickly. And then you add to that a general reluctance of talking about military matters, and then of course the chat about NATO's nuclear sharing policy, and you mix that all together, and eventually you get this nice little political cocktail that is known as, I am not going to stick my head out for this. Germany as a country, not just the politicians, but as a country since the Cold War, really needs to start finding a consensus on some of the most basic defense and security questions. Do we want an army? What sort of army do we want? What capabilities and competencies do we want our force to have? What sort of missions is this force laid out for? What partnerships do we want with international partners? Do we want to be in nuclear sharing? Do we want to be in NATO? And yes, I understand that in talking to an international audience, and also probably to quite a few Germans amongst you, a lot of these questions seem simple and naive. But in Germany, they are not redundant. On some level, those questions still need to be answered. Because at the moment, the country just tries to desperately cling to the superficial status quo that was happening during the Cold War, but it is in itself very unhappy in that position. And at the same time, its allies are very unhappy about that as well. And if you don't have a vision about what sort of army you want and what sort of missions you want this army to conduct, embedded into what sort of partnerships and equipped for what sort of conflicts, how can you then make coherent decisions once you have to start thinking about spending a lot of money on things like the tornado replacement? During the Cold War, a lot of these things were easy and self-explanatory. Yeah, we had West Germany, there was the Warsaw Pact just across the border. That's dangerous. We need weapons to defend ourselves against them. And the East Germans were probably thinking the same thing, just vice versa, right? But since then, it feels that unified Germany has more and more just gone down this checklist of political buzzword bingo on international partnerships and commitments, and it really doesn't have a concrete plan or a concrete vision. And I think that this does have an influence on the F-35 question, because together with some of the other things that I've said, right, you are probably far less likely to put down money for something new if you don't exactly know what you need it for. And a simpler solution, or a seemingly simpler solution with, for example, the Eurofighter or the Boeing aircraft, might just be more inviting. Never mind whether they're actually able to do the task that you want them to do, or able to do a task that these platforms have to do in the future. For example, one basic question you might ask is, having talked about nuclear sharing, is the Eurofighter platform or is the Super Hornet platform at this point in time actually capable of fulfilling that mission, given the overall environment and the technology that exists nowadays compared to the F-35? Could the F-35 perhaps fulfill that mission, whereas Eurofighter and Super Hornet can't? Could the F-35 make a return in the discussion? Perhaps. It would be a quick fix, and it would allow, if Germany goes for the F-35, to close this chapter relatively quickly. But I don't think that's going to happen, and I also don't see anybody in the political landscape that is really prepared to push for it. Military procurement in Germany is a political hot potato. Most of these things just get passed on to the next minister. And then we arrive in the situation now where we have our present defense minister, Annegret Kramp-Karrenbauer, who, although she has problems selling herself as a politician, at least seems to try in order to get some of these issues fixed. And some of these issues, they date back half a decade, even a decade. Or with tornado replacement, you could even say 20 years. Because the previous defense ministers just, passed it along. So yeah, I'm not quite sure what's going to happen. Germany is in a situation where really the ship has sailed in a certain way, and it really can only choose between bad, worse, and worst options. And yeah, we'll have to keep an eye on what Annegret Kramp-Karrenbauer actually does, because yeah, she's inherited this problem, and well, at least she tries to fix it. So I hope that you enjoyed this video, and please let me know what you think about this situation down in the comment section below. I'm looking forward to all your comments, your ideas, and also your take on the whole situation, really. And if you enjoyed this sort of content, if you want to see more, please consider supporting the channel via Patreon or via channel membership. That helps out a lot. And as always, I wish all of you a great day, and see you in the sky.